Welcome to the Navseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, Ad Nauseam listeners, to episode 83 of the podcast.
83.
That's right.
Are you excited about those?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm using the E word.
How you feeling tonight? No, really.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
I like the dusk vibe here at Vomitorium East.
Yep, we're doing a nighttime podcast
right
at this time. It's always feels good to get back in the East where it all began.
It did really all begin here. Well, it began on my deck, if you remember. It was a July day.
It was. I remember it very fondly.
Yes. Is it time for a cheesy clip show?
It might be. I think number 100 should be cheesy clip
100
show.
should be the cheesy clip show.
We're closing in. We're closing in on it.
But if you take all 83 episodes and you put together the best of...
Yeah.
What's that, run for 10 minutes, maybe?
Solid 8.
A solid 8 minutes?
Exactly.
Pack some ads on the end.
Right, exactly.
There's a gurgle.
What's with ads? Yeah,
right.
Right.
So, Jeff, you're feeling well tonight?
I'm feeling well tonight. It's been a while since we've done a nighttime recording. And
That's right.
I'm feeling good. I like it. Yep, yeah. Good vibe.
The solitude, right?
Yeah, the solitude, the lighting. It's all good. Yeah.
So, what are we talking about this evening?
We're talking Aeneid. Right? This is going to be our first full-length episode in what's going to be a fairly lengthy treatment of a very important work from Roman history. Yeah.
This should get us to about number 123 or so, I would think, right?
I feel like I'm going to have to kind of rein you in a little bit, right?
I love this stuff, though.
Right. I know you do. Well, I do, too.
And I've taught more, although I began with Greek as a student, I've had more occasion to teach the Aeneid than the other epics.
Now, have you taught him in language or in translation?
I think I have taught it as a Latin course, Latin 200 something or 300, probably 7 times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, quite a lot. And then I have taught it in maybe 11 or 12 myth courses.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of exposure.
It is a lot of exposure. Now, let me just ask you, as we set on this course, 12 books of the Aeneid, pick your favorite. What's your favorite book?
2. Without hesitation.
Really?
Yes.
Right. I'm a 6 guy.
You're a 6 guy. You like the underworld?
I love the underworld, right?
Well, neither of us are Ovid, right?
No.
Which is everyone reads of Aeneas in Dido's arms and throws away the rest.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that always kind of irritated me.
Yeah. So, it's envy on Ovid's part. Come on.
Yeah, right. Book 4, great stuff.
Brilliant
stuff, but I think it's gotten too much stage time.
Yes, well, what we have to do here is, I think, try to resuscitate the Iliadic portion, books 7 through 12.
Yeah.
People don't give them the credit they deserve.
Right. Well, I think that extends to today. If like a high school class has a choice to be teaching between the Odyssey and the Iliad, they invariably choose the Odyssey.
That's right.
That's right. I think that same kind of bias is here. Yep.
Right.
But I'm with you. We need to take that part seriously and celebrate it as it deserves.
Yes, probably my favorite character, or one of my favorite characters in the entire epic, is Camilla.
Camilla, yes.
Yeah,
and who I think kind of gets erased from the conversation.
Yes, she does.
Yep.
We need to fix that.
Yeah.
But before we do that, let's give our shout out.
Yeah, so this shout out this week goes to, we have another New Zealander.
Yes, no more of these bossy Aussies.
No more bossy Aussies. We got the Kiwis.
That's right, a New Zealander.
Coming in strong.
And this go
is,
ahead.
Isaac Jones.
Mr. Isaac Jones from Hamilton, New Zealand.
Give us a little bit of his shout out.
Well, he says, in terms of the shout out, that would be cool. They seem like a calm people.
They are very laid back.
Really?
Very stoic. Right. I love and a great sense of humor, but very, very kind of understated.
I love that.
Yes,
I'd fit in there.
He's very British.
He says, you can just say I'm from Hamilton, New Zealand if you don't want to try saying Ngara Wahai.
Did you practice that today?
Just a couple times. Yeah. I said, cancel all my appointments. I'm working on this Maori word for the afternoon.
Right. This must be the indigenous name of the,
I think so.
of the place. Yes.
He says, I enjoy drinking and making coffee a lot, studying a Master of Arts in Christian and Classical Studies alongside his MDiv.
Right.
I have listened to every single episode of Ad Nauseam.
No, that's what I like to hear.
Wow.
Every single one.
Right.
Wow.
Mostly while working hanging safety nets, just residential ones before the roofs went on.
Do you exactly know what he's talking about?
I think that you hang a safety net, and then the roofers on the roof, if they were to trip and fall, they're caught there.
They're caught.
I'm guessing that's it.
Or maybe catching the materials.
I was thinking that as well, so they don't fall on passersby.
Yeah, right.
That's probably what it is.
Okay.
If it's in an urban setting.
Yes.
He says these are rather menial jobs that I had between barista jobs. I particularly enjoyed the Odyssey series.
Thank you.
Well, see, this is what we've done, Jeff. We have so beaten up on that series, which has not gotten the same kind of response, that now people in their kindness are contacting us to tell us specifically, I liked it.
Do you think they're telling the truth, or they're just trying to...
I don't care. Telling the truth or not, keep it coming. He also liked How Many Ships Can Your Face Launch?
Yes.
The one about Helen and Gorgias.
Yeah.
And the one on memory, episode 18, I think. Look at that guy.
Right.
Dropping references. This was the one that you entitled Cranks for the Memories.
Oh, one of my finer ones, I have to say. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Fascinating alongside the other episodes. Your podcast has lit a flame of desire to be great at Latin and Greek in order to enjoy thoroughly the classics and to learn from the church fathers. That's very nice, isn't it?
Very nice. Fantastic.
Can you share a little bit about the coffee method that our friend Isaac Jones uses?
Right. Well, so listeners, the full second paragraph that Mr. Jones sent us is about coffee.
Incredible.
It makes me, I feel a little intimidated.
More than a little, I would say.
I mean, with all the ratio ads, I thought, in owning a ratio, I thought,
right.
Hey, I know my coffee, but...
Peak of the game.
I know nothing.
Well,
I know nothing, right?
Not compared to Isaac.
No.
Listen to what he says.
He says, I use a pour-over with a gooseneck kettle that is temperature-controlled along with a scale and grinder that most would consider too much for a manual grinder. So hearing adverts for ratio coffee pleases me as I enjoy watching our slow progression into full-blown coffee snobbery.
He thinks we're progressing into full-blown coffee snobbery.
Well, what I hear there is he's just saying, you're not there yet.
Up your game.
Up your game. Right. So he represented New Zealand at the International Barista Champs.
Incredible.
Got into the semifinals. Yeah. I don't know how that goes or how that's judged, but
I don't know.
It's impressive.
It is impressive. Barista is actually, maybe I've mentioned it before, it's a word of Latin origin.
What does it mean?
Well, it's a taberna, right? Is a shop. A tabernista is a shopkeeper, and from tabernista comes barista.
Barista. Mm-hmm. Well, there you go.
Interesting, huh?
Yep.
He says, I am head barista at the cafe I work at, which means being incredibly fastidious in making coffee down to measuring each dose to 0.1 of a gram. Wow.
Well,
and
he gets mathy here. He kind of loses me.
Okay. And keeping shots within a couple of seconds on total coffee brewed. For instance, we keep our espresso at a ratio of more math, etc. Okay, let's wrap it up, Isaac.
Oh man! So I mean, he ends with some tips that I'm going to take to heart if I want to improve up my coffee game.
It's nothing I love more than unsolicited advice. Right. So thank you, Isaac.
All right, so Dave, we're talking Aeneid tonight. We're going to talk. We're going to get into book one, and there's no way we're going to come close to even finishing book one. Oh, not tonight.
No way.
But you're going to start us with an opening quote from one Mr. Brooks Otis.
That's correct. Yes, this is from his 1963 work, a classic, highly recommended from University of Oklahoma Press. I think it might be in a reprint paperback. That's what I have, at least. Brooks Otis, Virgil, A Study in Civilized Poetry. This is from page 200 to 22. Essentially, the real plot of the Aeneid is that of the formation and victory of the Augustan hero. Virgil selected Aeneas as his hero because he happened to be the one theos aner, the man who achieved divine status, of Roman tradition who actually belonged to the Homeric saga itself. Hercules was only incidentally connected with Rome. Romulus was already historical, in scare quotes, and thus alien to the epic heroic milieu. But Aeneas, of course, is meant to be the prototype as well as the mythical ancestor of Augustus.
So he's doing double duty there.
That's right.
Yeah, so I'm sure as many of our listeners are aware, the story of Aeneas had long been part of kind of the Roman legacy, the Roman heritage and history before Virgil gets his hand on the story. So Virgil did not invent this story, and he didn't even give it its first real kind of epic treatment.
That's
either.
right.
It's the one that lives on. It's the one that worked.
Correct.
Right. Please go.
And covered by Latin archaic poets,
yes.
Specifically Livius Andronicus and a fellow named Naevius, and of course, most of all, Ennius.
Yes.
So Ennius in his Annales, early Roman poet, he connects the events of the founding of Rome with the fall of Troy,
Right.
via Aeneas. It's all there really explicitly.
Right. So for our listeners who might not be as familiar with this stuff, Aeneas was he's in the Iliad.
Right.
He has he's one of the great Trojan warriors.
Priam's nephew.
Priam's nephew, son of Venus, has kind of his moment of glory on the stage.
His Aristeia.
His Aristeia, exactly.
When he opposes Achilles, and Achilles says, "Look, you're great, son of the goddess, but I don't want to kill you. Go back where you belong."
Right.
Basically, because I'm just way too much for you. You're overmatched. And at that point, remember, Poseidon reaches in and grabs Aeneas off the battlefield and throws him way back behind the Trojan line.
That's right. Yeah.
In order to save him.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And of course, Aeneas is really upset about this because this was going to be his moment of glory, but
No.
he's just no Achilles. He can't compare.
It can't compare, right? But there's this larger tradition that Aeneas was fated to be one of the few Trojans to survive the war, to escape, and found a new Troy somewhere in Hesperia, in the west.
That's right.
And that was kind of that loose thread of legend that the Romans grasped upon and wove their own tapestry of their own myths and connected it to their own history.
Yes, brilliantly.
Yes. So, one of the things that I'd like to talk about a bit is, so Virgil's clearly tapping into Homer here, right? In the very first line of the Aeneid, armo virumque cano, I sing of arms and the man. He gives away the game. I'm singing about war, and I'm singing about the man. I'm singing an Iliad, and I'm singing an Odyssey.
Yes, and I'm reversing the order.
I'm reversing the order, right. So
because the first 6 books are the Odysseic portion.
Yes, and the second books are the Iliadic, right? There's, as I was rereading book 1, that was one of many reversals.
Yes.
That I was noticing that I think that Virgil's kind of he's having a lot of fun. I think,
Absolutely.
Playing this game. But one of the things that makes Virgil and Homer so distinctly unique, different, is that Homer is this poet that kind of floats outside of time. Right?
Yes.
There's still debates, as we've talked about on this very podcast, if he's even a real figure or not, right?
You can go back to, I don't know if it's episode 5. It's pretty early.
Very early.
History and the Trojan War.
Yeah.
You can look up the Dennis Page and Joachim Latache stuff about the historicity of the war, but the person of Homer, completely different, like you're saying.
Exactly, right. So he kind of floats outside of time and outside of culture, but Virgil is so embedded in a very specific time and place. He's very specifically tying these legends to specific events in Roman history that it quickly, you don't have to read too much to figure out that he's doing something very different.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here's a reference I think you'll like. The unique thing about Virgil is that although he's completely in an historical moment, right, the beginning of the Augustan era, like that quote from Brooks Otis gave us, he is nevertheless mythologizing in a way that takes us back before all of this happened.
Right.
And it's kind of like the way in which comic books in the 20th century, the more popular and plausible ones are set in actual cities that we know about. Right? Like Spider-Man is in New York City.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The ones who are set in more fantastic places, even though the whole thing is make-believe, it's somehow less relatable if there isn't an element of history inserted somewhere.
Yeah, no,
Does that fit?
It totally fits. That totally fits, right? It goes. I have a perfect preference when it comes to like pop music.
Right.
If a pop song mentions like a specific street,
Yes.
that immediately grabs
love
my
it.
attention, right? And it becomes immediately less generic and something
Okay.
completely relatable. And I think that Virgil's doing that here.
So what you really hate is that very famous Starship song, "We Built This City."
Yes.
Which during the kind of the bridge in the middle where they have they play the radio,
radio
announcer,
guy,
but they changed it no matter in what city it was played,
Yes.
right? For I guess universal appeal, it's Seattle, it's the city, it's San Francisco, it's the city by the bay, it's Miami. You didn't go for that.
Infuriating.
You hate that,
Right. It's like they took a good thing and they just made it into a giant bowl of schlock.
By trying to apply it too broadly
Exactly.
and not attaching it to a specific detail.
Right. So if they'd kept it, the song is about San Francisco, I guess.
Yes. Okay.
And if they had just kept it there, I still would have hated the song, but it would have irritated me much less.
Okay. All right.
We're getting off the path here.
Okay. You just don't want to talk about Starship.
Oh my God.
What did we build this podcast on?
Oh man. It's just awful. Can we get past it, please?
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
All right. So, we were talking earlier, and I thought this was really interesting. I hadn't really even thought about it before. that, but I think it goes with this notion of kind of Virgil's throwing us back into kind of a Homeric mythologizing. That Virgil, of course, is on the other side of Plato.
Correct.
And but he does not seem, especially in his depiction of the gods.
That's right.
And notions of divinity, it's not kind of a post-Platonic world.
That's right. That is a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
It seems when the reigning zeitgeist, to throw in some Portuguese, when the zeitgeist, you're supposed to chuckle, Jeff.
We'll fix that in post.
It's German. It's not Portuguese. Anyway, is that all serious intellectuals are looking at the world through Stoic or Platonic or Epicurean or academic lenses. Even our man Lucretius, right? The whole enchilada. The gods in his story, they're totally a device.
Yes.
They really have nothing to do with his scientific and philosophical interests.
Exactly.
So it takes a poet of tremendous talent to make such a world plausible and to deal with serious moral issues with a mythology that I think by Virgil's time was completely discredited.
Yeah. But, in terms of just kind of raw storytelling, though.
Yes.
Like, we did those episodes on Lucretius.
Right.
And it was fascinating stuff, but if I want to rip roaring yarn and I have De Rerum Natura or the Aeneid in front of me,
right,
which one am I grabbing?
Oh, that's easy choice.
Right. So do you think that like Lucretius and Virgil, rough contemporaries, right?
Right.
Do you think that when the Aeneid was published, the public would have seen, well, this is old. I like it, but it's old timey. Or like
I think so. They would have found it
had not been done in so long.
I think they would have found it entirely new. In fact, that is part of the thesis of Brooks Otis' book. If I can just read from a little bit of the blurb, that you can find on the back of the book. In this classic study, Brooks Otis presents Virgil as a radically different poet from any of his Greek or Roman predecessors. I would say, with the exception of Homer.
Yeah.
He's not radically different from Homer. There are some interesting points of departure, but he has completely subsumed the genius of Homer in his work.
Right.
And that's what makes it incredible.
Yes, exactly. Right. So I think that, no Homer, no Virgil, obviously.
Right.
But it's what Virgil does with Homer. And we're going to talk a bit about these reversals. I think is so fascinating. I think that's where he takes the old and makes it completely new.
Yeah. Here's another potential illustration, and I got this from an old friend, a philosophy professor, a friend of mine named Greg Smith. I don't think Dr. Greg Smith is listening, but he was singing the praises of Augustine, and he said, Augustine of Hippo is a man that when you're reading him, you can't tell where the line between his own thoughts and the words of Scripture is. When you're reading Augustine, you think you're getting his thoughts, and then suddenly it's a quotation from the Psalms or Timothy or something like that.
Yeah.
Because he had so completely, melded his mind with a scriptural way of thinking about the world.
Yeah.
So by way of analogy, I think this is what Virgil has done with Homer.
Oh, I like that.
He has just completely imbibed Homer's spirit.
So where does Homer end and Virgil begin?
Exactly.
When Virgil's at his best, you can't tell.
That's right.
Yeah, man. So in our first gurgle,
yes,
we covered the first 7 lines of the Aeneid.
Yes.
And I don't want to spend a lot of time rehashing
we can't
that.
do
The
that.
listener can easily do that. It's a short little piece.
15 minutes.
But is there anything from at least these opening 10, 11 lines that you wanted to zoom in on before we jump into themes?
Well, I think we should pick it up here at about line 8. Musa mahi kausas memora quo numina lyso. And I want to look at this ablative absolute here, this quo numina lyso. Or this interrogative, I suppose. Muse, tell me the causes. Remind me of the reasons. Mihi causas memora. Which divinity was torqued? Which one was upset? Right.
Yes.
So we've got this word here, numine, right, the divine presence, and we've got the participle lyso from lido litera, which means to wound. So again, here is the Homeric idea that the gods are giant children filled with the passions and angers that characterize human beings, but just on a scale of magnitude much higher than we can imagine.
Yes, way more human than human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So who was it, or grieving over what? This is the line 9. Quidva dolens regina deum tot vovere casus. What caused the queen of the gods to punish a man who was marked out in signem for his pietate? So Jeff, what are we to think about this concept of pietate here in line number 10?
Well, so one of the notable adjective that is often applied to Aeneas, and one that he even applies to himself within the narrative, is pious Aeneas.
That's right.
Which kind of the lazy translation of that is pious Aeneas.
But when you think of piety, what here in the beginning of the 21st century, what connotations does it conjure up?
It conjures up kind of hands pressed together in a halo.
Right.
It's kind of a quiet, spiritual obedience.
Yes, maybe walking quietly, meditating on the world.
Yes, exactly. But that is not the pietas that the Romans they wouldn't have understood it in that particular way.
No, not at all, I don't think.
Right. So I've always thought, the Roman pietas, marked by piety, it's with its duty and obligation.
Right.
Particularly to one's ancestors, particularly your father.
Yeah.
And the gods too, but particularly the household gods.
That's right.
The local gods. Right.
That's why the famous painting, I can't remember who it is right now, but of Aeneas holding Anchises on his shoulder,
yes,
gripping Ascanius by his hand. This is the perfect picture of Roman pietas.
Right, and
he's supporting tradition on his shoulder.
And often Ascanius himself is holding the household gods.
Yes, the penates, because he's the bearer of religious tradition. And also, Aeneas is leading his son Ascanius by the hand, so he's responsible for guaranteeing the future.
Yeah.
That's piety or pietas in a Roman sense. It has really almost nothing to do with sentiment.
Right.
It's all about duty.
Duty.
What have you done? I don't think that Aeneas is really very joyful in this epic at all.
No.
This is one of the common criticisms, that he is a pale, bland character.
He's a downer.
Correct.
We'll get to the first scene where see him. He's blubbing at the start.
That's right. He shows up and says, "Sum pius Aeneas," I'm pious Aeneas, but it doesn't seem to be a lot of emotion in it.
No.
And that's because piety is not about sentiment in the Roman world.
Right. And Aeneas he carries this weight of destiny, right? Mm-hmm. And Virgil's very clear that he's going to suffer into things, the fruition of which he himself is not going to see.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you think Aeneas could maybe enter our intern program? He's carrying the weight.
Oh, as a schlepper?
Yeah, if he's carrying the weight of destiny, maybe he could carry some other things for us.
He said, like, as long as you got that,
right?
Pick up these sacks.
Here's a container of water bottles.
He'd be a great schlepper.
He would.
Right. He might mumble and kind of complain a little bit, but you'd push him along.
Right.
And tell him he's fated to do these things.
Yeah, he's like that Marvel character.
Which guy?
Groot, right? The
Groot.
tree guy?
Right, who just says, "I am Groot."
Yeah, sum pius Aeneas.
Yeah, just from place to place.
That's right.
I like it. Hey, I wanted to I think it's the very first, it's not the first mention of the gods, but even that word numine, right? That is the numen, a divine presence, right? Strikes me as a very kind of, Virgil is carving out, this is Roman, not Greek.
That's true.
Right. There's this notion that, a grove or a corner could be God haunted is not a very Greek idea.
No, it isn't.
Right. And to add to that, this notion of the familia, the importance of the family. I really want to do my godfather here. Right. That duty to one's ancestry and to the future generations. It's not that family wasn't important to the Greeks, but that
was different.
The duty to that line is something very uniquely Roman.
I don't believe that the Greeks hung in their hallways images of their ancestors.
Exactly right. The masks of their dead ancestors.
The manes. So the last item I hear, I suppose, would be line 11. Impullerit tantainanamis kai lestibus irdrai. Can heavenly minds have so much anger? So this is a very leading question, which I suppose is intended to get us thinking about, does divine malevolence drive this entire epic?
Yeah. Do you think that's kind of as I'm looking at the line here, do you think it's a kind of there's an embedded criticism there?
A little bit.
Why would they have so much anger?
Right. So we spent quite a bit of time earlier in this episode, saying how much Virgil has imbibed the spirit of Homer.
Yeah.
But of course, there are also key differences. And I would say this is one of those differences. The gods are more or less a given in the world of Homer.
Yeah.
And when Homer talks about the gods' morality, he typically talks in terms of their displeasure with human beings for not living up to their standards. And he pokes some gentle fun at them. But for Virgil, there are deep moral questions involved that poke through from time to time.
Okay. So we'll keep an eye out for those things.
Yes.
So Dave, who is this Newman? Who is this goddess that's so angry?
Well, it's Juno.
It's Juno.
Exactly.
Right.
The original wicked stepmother.
Right. She plays such a thankless role in so many of the stories attached to her. Having to put up with her husband/brother's infidelities. And so she, I think that, Virgil's, he's tapping into that well-known mythological notion of Juno/Hera being put upon angry deity.
Correct. She has to constantly fix the philandering mess that her husband makes.
Yes. Okay, Dave, so Juno's angry, but Juno's always angry.
Yeah.
Why is she angry here?
Well, she has so many reasons. We can't even begin to enumerate them.
Well, could you give us at least a couple here?
Sure. It's Carthage, right? It's Carthage. She loves the city of Carthage. It's inhabited by Tyrian colonists.
Okay.
It stands opposite Italy, far from the Tiberine shores and so forth.
Yeah.
And she just really loves this place.
Yes. Have you been to Carthage?
I have not.
I have.
And tell me about it.
It's magnificent. You can still see the harbor and the boathouse, the kind of the octagonal kind of shaped kind of man-made harbor that the Carthaginians built, and you can, on a clear day, you can see all the way to Sicily. It's incredible.
I am envious.
Yeah.
Because I would love to see Carthage.
Yeah, it's amazing. I can see how a goddess or others would fall in love with it.
Right.
But I gotta say, one of the things I don't like is I still don't fully understand. Okay, so Juno loves Carthage, but I don't get exactly why. I mean, so Virgil tells us she keeps her chariot and her weapons there.
That's right.
So what? It's a garage, right?
You don't love the place where you store your items?
I'm not a big fan of. Maybe it's because I have kind of a small, crappy garage.
Okay.
And so it's never been a big place for me.
The goal is to get the vehicle in there as soon as possible and to get yourself out of it.
Yeah, more or less.
As quickly as possible.
Exactly. It's so cramped that you barely have any room
Yes.
between the weed whacker and to get out of there. So
Right.
But I thought that was kind of odd that Virgil mentioned that. Well, that's where she stores her chariot.
Right.
Is that enough to
I don't know.
fall in love?
Have
with
you
this
seen
place?
these ads for the brand new epoxy floor you can put in your garage?
Well, that would be nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'd be very nice.
I'd spend more time in my garage if I had an epoxy floor.
Exactly.
And maybe
And
a drain.
that's
Yeah.
probably what Juno has.
Okay.
Where she stores her weapons in her chariot, it's all epoxy from wall to wall.
Right. But on a more serious note, it does seem that Virgil is suggesting that Juno is kind of throwing her own honor, her own lot in with the Carthaginians. She wants to see this place run the world.
That's right.
Rule the world, right?
And she identifies with Dido. She loves Dido
Mm-hmm.
and has cherished Dido, I think, as a woman after her own heart.
Okay.
That is a woman whose husband was faithful to her but was murdered by the brother-in-law. That is by Pygmalion, Dido's own brother.
Yeah.
We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think Dido was like a Juno character,
That's really
a
interesting.
woman of great authority.
Right. Now we're talking about reversals.
Yes.
It reminds to compare this with the Odyssey. Of course, Odysseus, the titular hero, is a man after Athena's own heart.
That's right.
That
She
connection.
says, I love you, Odysseus. I love him because he's like me.
Yeah.
He's witty, he's clever, he can lie.
Yes, exactly. But if you compare it to the main hero here, Aeneas, his protector deity is his mom, Venus. But there's not that kind of simpatico relationship
Nope.
that you see there. So it's
More Portuguese.
he's using he's Virgil's he's placing kind of the Homeric relationship on ultimately this tragic character who
Exactly.
will meet an awful fate fairly soon.
Book 4.
So it's another one of these ways I think of kind of toying with the audience's expectations. It's Homer, but it's Homer in the mirror.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's read a little bit of the Latin here, if I may, lines 19 and following, and then maybe you can give us some of the Lombardo. So he says, Progeniem sedenim Troiana sanguina duci, audierat tierasso lim quae virturit arces, hinc populum later regem bello qua superbum, ventur rex cidio libii, sic vovera parcas.
And here's Stanley Lombardo's translation. But she had heard that a scion of Trojan blood would someday level Carthage's citadel, that a Trojan people, an imperial power, would destroy Libya. So the Parcae were spinning out fate.
Spinning out fate.
Spinning out fate. Now, this puzzles me.
Okay.
Juno, if anyone, should know what we refer to on this podcast as the rule of oracles, right?
Right.
If fate has said this is going to happen, why bother?
Right. Well, because it is her, it's her fate. She has to do it, right? People can only act in character.
Is that the answer?
Yes.
Okay.
So here's an example. You know, you're going to go for a run, right? Because, you know, it's summertime here in Michigan, more or less. You want to get some, you know that at the end of the run, you're going to be exhausted, right? And there are going to be elements of the activity that you're going to deeply regret.
Yes.
But you have to do it anyway because that's the kind of person you are.
Ah, okay.
Right? When the sun comes out and it looks, you know, like it's going to be a glorious day, you think, I've been inside all winter. It's time to get some exercise.
Right, exactly.
So, because that's what you do, right?
Yeah. So you kind of mix that with a kind of, I think also kind of a general self-loathing, right? But I thought, no, maybe I like that answer. I mean, so Juno does this in the face of things that she knows that ultimately this is going to fail.
Right.
But she has to do it anyway.
It's because who she is.
Right. And I think also we've talked about also in other podcasts about kind of the notion of fate is that, you know, point A is going to get to point B, but there's a lot of wiggle room that can happen between those.
That's right.
And so it's almost like this Juno says, well, if I got to accept point B, I'm going to take down as many people as I can.
That's right.
I'm going to make it as miserable as possible, and there's some victory in that.
Yes, it's the villain in the movie, right? Who knows he's going to lose, but he's going to cause as much carnage as he can before he is ultimately hauled off to his fate.
So Juno's kind of like the Joker.
Yeah, I think.
Just going to cause mayhem.
Yes, and carnage.
Yeah.
So we have a mention of the fates here, right? The parkai.
Parkai, yep.
So in Greek, these are the moirai, and there are 3 of them. So the word that, what is the word that Lombardo uses? Spin, right?
Yeah.
So the fates spin.
Yes.
And that's because there's this weaving metaphor. The Latin is walwera, so this is how the fates roll.
Yeah.
So I think of
This is how they roll.
Yeah, I think of the fates sitting in a cabriolet or something like that. What is that? Half truck, half
El Camino?
El Camino.
Yeah.
Yes, I think of the fates sitting in an El Camino, just driving.
All 3 of them like on that front bench.
Exactly,
Yeah.
just driving around making decisions. But it's Clotho, spinner, Lachesis, a lauder, and Atropos, the sister who
The cutter.
cuts the thread at the end, right?
Yeah.
And so a really important theme in the Aeneid is that Jupiter is himself subject to the fates.
Yes.
And so here you see a little bit of something like monotheism or Stoic determinism overshadowing the Homeric world.
Yeah.
Because you don't really have that in Homer, in the Iliad.
Or at best, it's fuzzy, right?
Exactly.
There are things in the Iliad where Zeus basically he decides to allow his son Sarpedon to die because Hera tells him, "Hey, this is guy's fate." Mm-hmm. But there is the suggestion that if Zeus really wanted to,
he could strong arm it.
He could strong arm it, or even many of the other gods. I mean, Hera says, like, listen, if you do that, we're all going to want to strong arm the fates.
That's right. That's a good point.
And there's that other scene, too, where we see Zeus dishing out things from the jars on the left-hand, right-hand side of his throne, which kind of makes him synonymous with fate. But Homer's all over the map.
Correct.
But with the Romans, there's a very clear org chart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Org chart?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have the Parkai at the top.
That's right.
And Zeus underneath that, and so on and so forth.
Okay. So an org chart, I'm not familiar with this term.
Like, so if you want to, if you want to see how a company is organized, like, okay, who's the head honcho and who are the lesser honchos?
Right. So how does it work here at Navseam headquarters?
Like, who's the honcho?
Who's the honcho?
I want to keep saying the word honcho
because it's Portuguese.
It is Portuguese. Yes. So Juno is she's subject to fate, but she also, I think, like a Homeric character also would know, like or like an Oedipus might know. There's lots of things you can do before that fate comes to bear.
Yeah. So should we talk a little bit about her anger about the events of Troy before we go to the break?
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay, so she was afraid of this, line 23, right? And remembering that ancient war that had been fought at Troy on behalf of her dear Argive. She loves those Greeks. But this is the part I think is really interesting. Hell hath no fury, says Shakespeare, like a woman scorned.
Yes.
This is what really made her angry, right? Line 27. Eudicium paradispretae quinuria formae. That Paris didn't think she was all that easy on the eyes.
Yes, right.
So how does Lombardo construe that?
He translates, the goddess brooded on this and on the Trojan War, which she herself, Saturnian Juno, had waged on behalf of her beloved Greeks, ever mindful of the judgment of Paris, the cause of the war, and her savage grief over her beauty scorned by that hateful race. So she doesn't just blame Paris, she blames the whole the whole race.
That's to really hold a grudge, isn't it?
Right. Well, I mean, there's not a lot of Christian forgiveness in these poems.
Pretty much none.
You get a grudge, you hold it. Mm-hmm. So, but let's just recap that story of the judgment of Paris.
Yes, the wedding of Peleus and Thetis.
Right. So, the way the story usually goes is that this is the social event of the year. Everybody's invited, humans and gods alike. But the one goddess who's not invited is strife.
Yeah, Eris.
Eris.
Discordia in Latin.
Yeah. So she gets her revenge by inscribing on a golden apple for the fairest.
Yes.
Calliste in Greek, and throws it amongst the goddesses, knowing their vanity.
Right.
They're all going to squabble about it.
They're dressed to the nines.
Oh yeah, everybody's there to see and to be seen.
Exactly.
And it comes down to the big three. Let's use the Roman names since we're
okay.
Minerva, Venus, and Juno. Mm-hmm. And they can't. None of them is gonna back down.
Right.
They all want the apple.
Correct. And Jupiter originally is compelled to decide, but he's too wise, so he hands it off to his friend Mercury.
Yeah.
Who then takes the golden apple off to Mount Ida, where Paris is, and makes Paris decide. And he doesn't want to either because he's too wise.
Because he knows that by picking one goddess, you're insulting two.
Exactly.
You cannot win.
Cannot win.
Right. And so each of the goddesses attempts to bribe Paris. Usually it's kind of in accordance with their sphere of influence.
Yes, and this is really fascinating because the bribe that Juno offers is military power.
Yeah.
The bribe that, is political power. The bribe that Minerva offers is military power. The bribe that Venus offers is beauty. Love, pleasure. Mm-hmm. And so what does Paris choose?
He chooses beauty, love, and pleasure.
Yeah, so do you think this is saying something about human beings broadly and maybe men in particular?
Well, I think that it's a very masculine bribe.
Yes.
Right? And so
So would you rather command an army, be mayor of Grand Rapids, or, whatever the third thing is?
Right. Well, I think what we know about Paris is that Minerva and Juno didn't know Paris very well. Right?
Okay.
He has this reputation as a playboy.
Right.
And it's Venus who can kind of zero in on what he really wants. Right. I guess maybe Minerva could think that, well, if he has military power, then the love and pleasure will follow.
Yes, but those are the questions that you're not supposed to ask. Those are like biologicals.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Why didn't he wear thicker? Why didn't Achilles just wear some thick boots?
Thick boots. Strap on some merrills. Right.
Correct.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. You're not supposed to ask that.
Right.
So he chooses Venus, and Venus, promises him the love of the most beautiful woman in the world. But of course, there's always a catch.
Right. Unfortunately, she's already married.
Right, married. Not only that, but to the host of the party.
That's right.
And then the dominoes start to fall from there. And so Juno never forgets this insult.
Yeah.
And she's been carrying this wound all these years, and she doesn't blame just Paris. She blames Paris and all of the other Trojans that he's related to and kin to.
Yeah. You don't seem like a grudge carrier.
I'm not a grudge carrier.
No, you're very good at unloading grudges.
Though I do have these stoplight moments where I'll think back to like something that happened like in third grade.
What is a stoplight moment? Is that on the org chart? Because you're losing me again.
Oh, I mean, like, don't you ever have it like you're like stuck at a stoplight and you might not have the radio on and your mind just kind of wanders, and for whatever reason it just lands on something weird. Maybe this is just me.
Yeah.
But I'll think back to something that happened like in 1981. I'm like, why did I say that?
Yeah, but that's more about regret.
Maybe it is regret, or if it's something, or
it's not grudge.
Or maybe a kid that was like bullying me. I realized, well, I'm still not over that. So maybe I am carrying these small little grudges.
Yeah,
but not on this Olympian scale.
No, I have those big regret moments. I don't have. And I tend to carry grudges probably more than you do. But why are you laughing?
Yeah. But you know what I'm talking about? The regret moment?
Yes.
Yes. But I've held I've held grudges and some that have been easier and more difficult to let go.
Right.
I can relate to this. But
Juno has no regrets. For her, it's all grudge all the time.
All grudge all the time. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Right.
Speaking of grudges, it's time for our commercials. This episode of Ad Nauseam is brought to you by Mishka. We need a drum roll here.
Thank you, Mishka.
Why do we need a drum roll, Jeff?
Because we got a new sponsor. That's
a
why.
brand new sponsor?
Yes.
This is a local firm, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Here in the great state of Michigan.
Yes. Pop City Popcorn.
Pop City Popcorn down in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yes. One of my favorite cities to say.
Kalamazoo?
How can you not enjoy saying Kalamazoo?
It's incredible. And how can you not enjoy this amazing popcorn? So our friends down there at Pop City Popcorn, they have been popping this extraordinary gourmet popcorn down in Kalamazoo. They've been selling it out of their store, and they've just decided that they are going to ship this around the country, around this great continent.
Yes, fantastic. I consider myself a fairly sophisticated popcorn connoisseur.
Yes.
I love popcorn.
I do too.
So I was prepared to be disappointed.
You really?
I was.
So when I first told you about this brand new sponsor, you thought, okay, Dave, we'll give it a go, but come on.
Right. I mean, you've seen these specialty stores, and so I was skeptical, but I got to say, having sampled it, it's incredible.
It is really incredible popcorn.
The sheer number of flavors and styles that they have. My boys loved the Parmesan one.
And did you know that the cheese on this popcorn, all of the cheese, it is not powder. It's actual grated cheese.
It's the real deal.
It's incredible.
And you take a few bites, you can absolutely tell. Yes.
The bacon cheddar, that was just phenomenal. A combination of white cheddar popcorn and cheddar mixed with a smoky bacon seasoning.
Yep. My wife particularly enjoyed the dill pickle.
Oh, really?
Yes, I thought that was coming out. That came out of left field.
She really liked that.
Yeah. My boys loved the sweet ones, the two-way drizzle.
That's correct. The rainbow popcorn.
The rainbow popcorn
Yeah.
and the caramel corn. This is no Jack or Cracks.
No.
This is
Jack or Cracks.
This is amazing stuff.
Yeah, and they like a big hit in my family was the chocolate peanut butter.
Oh yeah.
Put that on popcorn. They have a Bronco mix because they're located there in Kalamazoo, so they're attached to the Central Michigan University.
Western Michigan.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Whoops. Western Michigan.
Yep.
They supply all the popcorn for the football season.
Fabulous.
For Western Michigan. So they can pop a lot of corn.
Yes. So, listeners, if you're interested, and you should be.
You ought to be.
Go to popcitypopcorn.com.
That's right.
Find you're gonna be there a while.
Yes, because they're an amazing selection of flavors.
Yep. But you can choose your whatever you want to throw into your little satchel there.
That's right. They pop only. I know you're trying to get to the code.
Yes.
But I got more to say.
Oh, please go.
They pop only non-GMO popcorn seed in coconut oil. Delicious. The caramel corn is made with real butter, brown sugar, and Madagascar vanilla.
My goodness.
They go all the way to the east coast of Africa to get this vanilla and put it on the popcorn.
That's the real deal.
It's
yes.
incredible. So what is the coupon code?
So if they drop in the coupon code ANPOP and POP.
Yes, Ad Nauseam Pop 20.
And they'll get 20% off their first order.
Yes, every first-time order. Now, this is really living the Ad Nauseam life, isn't it?
It is.
You get some good books from Hackett.
Yep.
You get a cup of coffee. You're going to need some napkins, I have to say.
Oh, definitely.
For the popcorn. I like to eat popcorn when I'm reading a book, but, I mean, we're in napkin territory now, right?
The napkin and bib territory.
The napkin and bib, maybe like a whole body bib.
Yes.
Because you're really going to want to enjoy this popcorn.
Yeah,
you just can't hold back.
This isn't stuff you throw into your mouth absent-mindedly.
No.
This is like a course of its own that you want to focus on.
It takes commitment.
Yep.
So check it out.
This episode of Ad Nauseam also brought to you by Hackett Publishing. Hackett Publishing has been in the book publishing business for, I think this is their 50th year?
Absolutely.
Yep, this is their 50th year anniversary. They have offices located in Indianapolis, Indiana, also in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we love these guys. They've been with us since the very beginning.
That's right.
They when we were just an idea on the back porch.
Correct.
They were all in.
They were there.
They were there. And we've talked ad nauseum how much we've loved their translations, how much we've used them in our classes, how much we love having them on our shelves at home. In fact, I'm looking at Stanley Lombardo's translation of Virgil's Aeneid, which is published by Hackett.
Correct.
And they've got another one of those wonderful corollaries, historical corollaries.
On the cover? Tell us about that.
On the cover, it's got a faded from the background. We see the names from the Vietnam War Memorial from Washington, D.C.
Huh.
And so it's just like the Iliad has the storming of Normandy
right
on there. It's
and the Odyssey has the moon landing.
The moon landing. This is kind of a very solemn, sad, compelling remembrance of war.
Right.
Yep.
Very nicely done.
Very nicely done. It's so artful. It's so subtle. But
they have. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No.
But they have not only Stan Lombardo's Aeneid by Virgil. They also have the new one by Len Kresak, which is a rhyming one that we've used a little bit, and we're going to use more.
Yeah, so interesting. I love that the publisher takes a chance on these many different things. They don't just kind of stick to one translator for one work and move on. Listener, go to hackettpublishing.com and just scroll through their catalog. It's incredible.
Yes, HACKETT publishing.com. When you find the book or books that you'd like, put them in your grocery basket next to the popcorn and the boiled cheese and so forth.
Yes.
And then when you get to checkout, you're going to want to use this coupon code.
Yes, it's ANCO5J.
That's not the right one.
That's not the right one?
That's for racial coffee.
Sorry. That would be AN2022.
That's right.
Okay.
Should we leave that in?
Yeah, let's leave it in.
It's
human.
Late. We are human.
Yes. So AN2022, and that will get you 20% off your entire order and free shipping.
Yes. And speaking of ANCO5J,
yes,
as we just were, this episode is also brought to you by Racial Coffee.
Racial Coffee, yes. I have one of their machines, and
I
love it.
Is it the 5? Is it the 4?
I have the, what is it? Do I have?
It's the Ratio 6.
It's the Ratio 6, yes.
Yes.
Right. So
you feeling all right, Jeff?
I'm a little, I was thrown by getting the wrong code.
That's okay.
I'm back on track now.
Okay.
But Dave, tell us something about what other people have said about the Ratio Coffee.
Right. So this is a little review by a woman named Felicia Kluwer. It's from Seattle Coffee Gear, and she says, "Now there's a handsome brewer. The Ratio 8 Edition coffee maker marries pour over with automatic functionality. We've categorized this coffee maker as a drip brewer, but we feel it deserves classification as an automatic pour over. To start, the Ratio 8 Edition performs a proper bloom that completely stops the flow of water for 30 seconds. Isn't that incredible?
That's incredible. We've been talking. That's the key.
Exactly. Tell us, Jeff, what do you think about the bloom cycle?
The bloom cycle is still something that mystifies me.
Okay.
Right? It's this short. It's this short stage before the real kind of bubbling and brewing begins.
Right.
But there's lots of off gassing.
Yes.
I understand that goes on. All the toxic stuff that you're going to find in your usual scorch pattern.
That's right.
It's gone.
The Kindle brick underneath keeping things hot. We don't want to drink that.
No, not at all. Right. So it struck me as you were reading that is that, as we were talking that, with Virgil, he's so subsumed Homer that you don't know where the Homer ends and Virgil begins.
That's
here.
right.
Where does the pour over end and the automatic functionality begin?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. Even Felicia can't figure it out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a flagon.
Exactly right.
A hulking flagon.
A hulking flagon.
So it goes down in there, and then you've got good coffee drinking for hours.
For hours, right? It's amazing how long that carafe keeps things heated. So I can't recommend these machines highly enough. I love my 6. I know you love your 8.
I do, yes. I like the oyster with the walnut accents.
Yep.
It's a beautiful work of art, really, on my countertop.
Right. So listeners, if you want one of these machines, either the 6 or the 8, go to ratiocoffee.com and pick the one you want, and you can put in the code. I'm going to try to redeem myself here.
Okay.
It's ANCO5J.
That's correct.
Yes, Ad Nauseam Coffee 5J.
And you will get 15% off your brilliant coffee maker. This thing will last you at least one generation.
Yeah, it's an heirloom. You won't regret it.
Check it out. So, Jeff, as we get back into the episode now, we have to take a look at Juno's first action on the big stage.
Right, and it's a big one.
That's right.
We're talking about the storm.
Right, she's going to provoke a storm. Now, the storm is a set piece of epic. We have the great storm in the Odyssey that swamps Odysseus. We've got the storms in Apollonius of Rhodes, the Argonautica. Mm-hmm. This is the set piece of epic. You got to have a big natural cataclysm or disaster to challenge the hero.
That's right, and Virgil gives it to us early on.
Exactly. And so Juno is upset. She sees the ships of Aeneas and company crashing through the briny foam, making their way to Italy with the bronze cleaving the waves and so forth. And she just has a fit. Yep.
So she calls on the guy that you want in your corner for something like this.
That's right.
Aeolus, the king of the god of the winds.
That's correct. She has this, little... I don't know, she's quite angry here. Asteco quaiti vincedor regina iuvisque. Look, I'm the sister and the wife of Jupiter, and I have to put up with this stuff? How come I can't, just overthrow this tiny little people that's making their ways, making their way to Italy? Why can't they know when they're beaten?
Right. And so she pulls rank on Aeolus. I mean,
That's
so
right.
Aeolus is a god, but he's way down the org chart.
Yes,
Yeah.
way down the
Way down the
org
org
chart.
chart.
He reigns in the land of Aeolia. I wonder where that name came from.
Aeolia.
Yeah. Oh, he's named after Aeolus.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
like like you call, your domain Jeffreyana.
Exactly. It's not very popular in my household. Right. Yeah, that's it. Yes. Bring me my slippers. I am the king
Of Jeffreyana. So where does Aeolus, where does he reign? What's the description of his kingdom and what it's like?
Here, I'll read Lombardo's translation. Her heart inflamed, the goddess went to Aeolia, a country of clouds and raging winds. Here in a vast cave, Aeolus rules the squalls and gales, keeping them chained in vaulted cells. The indignant winds roar at their prison doors, rumbling deep in the mountain. But Aeolus sits on high with his scepter, and with his scepter calms their frenzied souls. If he did not, they would swoop over land and sea and through the deep sky, sweeping everything before them. Fearing just this, the Father Almighty hid them away in dark caves and piled above them a mountain massive. And he gave them a king, one who would know by chartered agreement when to restrain and when to unleash them.
That's really nicely done. That's a great translation.
And I think he goes well beyond what I'm remembering Homer gives us of Aeolus from the Odyssey.
Oh, yes.
It kind of reminds me in some ways of Circe, a minor deity who's in charge of her, or in this case his own small weirdo little kingdom.
Right.
Yeah,
But ends up playing a big role.
yeah, but a very big role.
So then Juno says to him, Aeola namque tibi diwam paterat communum rex. She comes to him with a bribe, basically. Mm-hmm. This is what I want you to do. I hate these people, this hated race, this gens inimica. It's headed to Tyrannum, and I want to stomp them and swamp them. And so I need your help, Aeolus.
Right. So she wants your basic stomp and swamp.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it comes with the bribe. And what I find so interesting about this bribe is that it is thoroughly Roman.
Do tell.
Well, I'd like to read a couple of lines of the Latin, and then maybe we can get the Lombardo and talk about it.
Sure.
So she says, Sunt mihi bis septem praestanti corpora nymphae, quadrum quae forma pulcherrima de Iopeia, connubio iungam stabili propriamque de cabo, omnisut te cum meritis protalibus annos exigadet pulcra faciat te prola parentem.
All right. And Lombardo translates this as, I have 14 nymphs with lovely bodies, the most radiant of which, Deopeia, I will pronounce your wife to have and to hold in return for this favor. She will live with you all her years and bear you beautiful children.
Yes. Isn't that a Roman bribe?
Oh, how so exactly?
Well, because it's a promise of marital bliss and good children.
So it's getting back to what we were saying at the beginning here. It's about family.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Would the Greeks go for a bribe like this? Is this an appealing bribe to Odysseus?
Well, I think that the the bride stealing motif that we see in tales like in the Homeric legends, the captive women as prizes, but this goes beyond that.
It does.
This is marriage. This is marriage and children.
Stable marriage for many years and lovely offspring.
It's not just a token of your victory in this one affair.
No, it seems to me like it is presenting a picture of domestic bliss that would only be appealing to a Roman, I guess.
Yeah. And it strikes me as I think Virgil's maybe having some fun here, but isn't Juno doing exactly what Venus did with Paris?
Yes.
Like, give me the apple, and you'll get this woman.
That's very insightful. I had never thought of that before.
But with the added note, I think it's also Juno. One of her functions, of course, is a goddess of marriage, right? Mm-hmm. And so she gives kind of the Venusian bribe. But it's not just hey, you two crazy kids run off together. No,
right.
This is going to be a great marriage with children.
That's right, a permanent arrangement.
Yeah.
So Aeolus goes for it, and he says, yours, queen, is to command, mine is to obey.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah, there's nothing. He can't turn this down.
No. So he takes his spear, and he reverses it, and he thumps the side of the mountain with the shaft of the spear. It's such a great line. The cavum montem conversa cuspide.
Yeah.
And out come pouring the winds. They come marching out like something from Fantasia, right? Yeah. They all come marching out in array.
Right, and we just saw that Virgil describes them as he keeps them kind of chained in their own little
That's
chambers,
right.
and here's kind of letting them all out.
Yes, agumina facto. They form up a column and out come the winds, and they just destroy everything and turn it upside down. Now, I love a good storm description.
Oh, this is fantastic.
It is phenomenal. Do you like a good storm description?
I like a good storm.
Okay.
Yeah. When I used to have a CD in my grad school days, the only way I could go to sleep if it had like 4 storms from the Rocky Mountains.
That's a little disturbing. Do they sound different in the Rockies than in the Appalachians?
It was booming. It was deep. It was epic. But I couldn't. There was a time where I could not fall asleep without hearing the sound of a raging thunderstorm. So I love a good storm and a description. I think this is as good, if not better, than anything along these same lines that we get in Homer.
It's phenomenal. It occupies lines 81 through 91 if you're following. Each of the 4 winds is mentioned. Right in there is the crashing and the sound and the cries of men and the ropes, right? The insequitur clamorque rerum stidorque rudentum. All of this is just going to mayhem. And in the midst of it now we get finally the titular hero.
Finally shows up. Yep. And it's not a very heroic, chest-thumping picture that we get.
No, it is not a grand entrance.
He's terrified. Lombardo, let me give the translation
All
here.
right.
So, Aeneas's limbs suddenly went numb with cold. He groaned, and lifting both palms to heaven, he said, 3 times, 4 times luckier were those who died before their parents' eyes under Troy's high walls. O Diomedes, bravest of the Greeks, if only I had been killed by your right hand in Ilium's plain, where Hector went down under Achilles' spear, where huge Sarpedon lies, where the Simois rolls, so many shields and helmets caught in its current, and the bodies of so many brave heroes.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Right.
Especially the Simois River here in line 100, right? I have this picture. The first time I read this line, I was an undergraduate. I was using Clyde Farr, the purple edition of Aeneid 1 through 6.
I know it well.
And probably reading Fitzgerald translation, I don't remember. But I had this picture of this river, the Simois River, just stuffed with corpses.
Yeah.
And I could see in my mind's eye, these huge men who are kind of trapped underwater, dead, like they're trapped under ice, looking up at the sky, as their galei, their helmets and their shields roll by, and there are their bodies.
Yeah.
So evocative.
Such a powerful, evocative image.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think this is where Virgil is at his best. Absolutely. No, I love that idea. And then, coupled with this idea that Aeneas is saying, I'd rather be dead.
Yes.
I would have rather have kind of lost the duel back on the plains of Troy than go down like this.
Mm-hmm. I'd rather be killed by Diomedes.
Yes. Yeah, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You pair that with the the first time we see Odysseus in the Odyssey is in Book 5,
mm-hmm.
and he's kind of, again, I think that Homer's borrowing something here. It's not a very heroic picture. He's kind of slumped over on the shores of Calypso's island, and he's weeping and he's blubbering,
bawling his eyes out.
But again, Virgil, I think, maybe borrows that paradox of we see the hero in a moment of kind of maybe unmanliness, and then turns it up to 11 here. Yeah.
So I've done a little bit of public speaking, in my life, and something that people have occasionally commented on is adjectives. Mm-hmm. It's not that I'm very good at it, but good adjectives make for interesting speech and interesting writing.
Yeah.
And everything I know about adjectives I've learned from Virgil, because he just has an amazing way with adjectives. His language is so beautifully descriptive.
Yeah. All right, so this is the time where Neptune shows up. Mm-hmm. He also pulls rank. He
That's
kind
right.
of sticks up his briny, algae-covered head out of the water, takes a look around, and he doesn't like what he sees.
No, it's like a periscope comes up, the placidum caput, and he surveys the terrain and what's going on here.
Right, this is my job.
Exactly.
And so he forcibly makes Aeolus back down, calms the storm. Maybe he's making up for chucking Aeneas back in the Iliad.
That was a move of rescue. I mean, it was a little bit dishonorable for Aeneas, but it was motivated by love.
It was, but maybe he felt the chucking was too much.
Maybe so.
Right. So he calms the waves and pushes the crew, the fleet, towards the shores of North Africa.
Yes.
And that is where we're going to pick it up next time.
That's correct.
And so just to give a little taste, this is where Aeneas finally meets up with his mom,
Yes.
Venus. He meets
in disguise.
in disguise.
We don't want to give that away.
Nope. He's going to meet up with his soon-to-be girlfriend in Carthage.
Dido.
Dido.
Or Alyssa, her other name.
That's right. All kinds of great stuff to get into.
The fantastic scene where he sees pictures of the Trojan War
Oh, yes.
displayed on the architecture of Carthage, including himself.
He's like he's seeing the movie made of his life already complete.
It's shocking. And then when he sees himself, it's 6 more months of winter.
That's right.
But that's for the next episode.
Yes, it is. But so we got to get out of here. But
Yes,
Dave,
we do.
before we do so, can you tell us something about the Moss method?
Yeah, I would love to tell you the truth about it, which is that it is, to my knowledge, the most comprehensive, self-paced, expert, and accessible Greek program available online. So there are a lot of people teaching Greek, some of them well, I would say, some of them maybe not so well. This one's comprehensive. So you purchase the Moss method for $2.99. June 1, it's going up to $3.25. We got to fight inflation.
Yep.
And you get access to 40 videos, 40 assignments, 6 quizzes, 2 exams, plus you get all of my expertise once per week in the Moss method office hours. This teaches you Attic Greek, so you can read Plato and Demosthenes and Xenophon. You can dabble in Homer. It'll also teach you New Testament. And I really think it is very comprehensive and thorough.
It will take you from neophyte to erudite, right?
Nice job. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the plan. So you don't want to miss out.
No, and so listeners can check out mossmethod.com.
That's correct.
And you got some free stuff there?
Lots of free stuff.
Okay.
I have lessons on most every author you can think of in the the major corpus. I've got Homer, I've got Oedipus, lots of Xenophon, I got Plato, all of 1st and 2nd Corinthians I've analyzed, the Septuagint from Genesis, Old Testament. There's a lot of free stuff. You can also sign up for the course.
Fantastic. Dave, also tell us about a little bit LLPSI.
Yeah, so I'm teaching Lingua Latina per se illustrata. We're finishing up Unit 1, which is chapters 1 through 9 of the Familia Romana book. And this is also learn at your own pace, but it's guided. So I'm not going to leave you without help. I've recorded all 9 chapters, first 9 chapters audio. You can listen to the audio recording of the Latin piecemeal, or you can put them all together and download it all at once, plus assignments and instructional videos and weekly interaction in our office hours. And this program costs only $199.
Fantastic. And where can they go to find this?
So that's latinperdiem.com/LLPSI.
Excellent. Check it out. Well, Dave, we got to go.
Yes.
But as always, we got some people to thank.
Absolutely.
Who should we thank?
I want to thank Mishka Fernando for doing such an incredible job as our sound engineer. And
putting up with us.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Brilliant work. So grateful for that. Ken Tamplin, Vocal Academy, has given us the intro music and the bumper music. And who's that guy that plays that brilliant Van Halen guitar?
That would be Scott Van Zen.
Oh, incredible.
Who I want to meet someday. You got to introduce me to these guys.
I met Scott.
I know you have.
And
you often mention it.
Yeah. I vacationed with Ken. We got to spend some time in Greece
you've mentioned
together.
that a few times as well. Right.
So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so what if we want to get some folks lined up for shout-outs? What should they do?
Well, they should send us a note either to myself at jeff@adnauseum.com. Don't forget the V. Or they can write to you, Dave, at adnauseum.com. Also, don't forget the V.
Correct. We'd like to hear suggestions for episodes. We would like to give you a shout-out. We can take some criticism. We can certainly take praise. Whatever you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, give us some ideas. What do you like? What don't you like? What do you want to see and hear more of? So next week, Dave, we're going to continue our look at the second half of Aeneid 1.
That's right.
Maybe just if it were up to you, maybe only the next 30 lines.
Maybe 29 even.
Right. But we're gonna continue our look at this fascinating Roman epic.
Yeah, we don't want to rush it.
Nope. And Dave, I believe you have our gustatory parting shot.
I do. This is from a fellow named Nigel Slater.
Yes.
I think that must be a British name.
Sounds like it.
The title of the work is Notes from the Larder.
Ooh.
You got a larder?
I don't. Was that just a place you keep fat?
You keep bacon in your larder.
Your larder? I don't have a larder.
It's pretty good. You should get a larder with an epoxy floor. It's called Notes from the Larder, a kitchen diary with recipes.
All right.
And here's the quote. A casserole of oxtail and prunes. This gives a perfect quantity for 2. I would have done the recipe for 4, but can't imagine ever getting 4 oxtail-loving people around the table at the same time.
Well said, Nigel.
How do you feel about an oxtail, Jeff?
I'm a fan.
So there's 2. We got 2. We just need 2 more oxtailers and we got a table.
And we'll get in touch with Mr. Nigel then.
That's right. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.